In this tutorial we're going to cover how you can integrate Endorphin into a Maya pipeline. Now usually when using a third-party application like Maya, you will have your character already set up. The naming conventions and shape and size of the character are going to be predefined and you don't want to modify those. So what we do is take the Endorphin character and change it to fit the size of your character. So first of all we need to go into Maya and get the characters out of there. So let's switch to Maya and load up the scene from this tutorial. Go to open scene, and then in here we're working in the Endorphin install resources tutorials pipeline tutorial Maya. First of all I'm going to bring up the character which is set into a T-pose. Just close the hypergraph. So as you can see here, the character has a mesh applied to the skeleton, and that's just simply a rigid bind for this example. So first of all we want to export the skeleton, and we're going to use FBX for that, and then I want to get the mesh of the character so we can actually fit the shape and size of that mesh so the character has the correct physical proportions in Endorphin. So first of all, export all, save it as FBX, and I'm going to call that T-pose, export. And then here you want to keep apply constant key reducer, keep that on, leave the sample rate at 30, and then these two here we don't need to worry about those, they're about textures. Click export, and that's exported the FBX out. And now to get the mesh out we do just the same, we go file, export, and then this time choose the OBJ exporter, and I'm going to call that T-pose underscore mesh. So now we've got that information out of Maya, we can now go back to Endorphin and start to get our character set up. So I go to File, Character Edit Mode, New Character, and then in this section here I'm going to choose the standard simulation character as the template for our simulation character, and then for the reference character I'm going to browse and select the FBX file I saved out from Maya. Click OK to choose those two characters, and now you can see we jump into character edit mode. So we've got some different icons on the top and the timeline has disappeared at the bottom. So here in the import dialog for the reference character I'm going to pick the hips as the root of the character, leave everything else as default, and then click OK. And now we've got the two skeletons on top of one another. I just switched to skeletal view there to show you. So the grayed out character is the reference character, and that's the one that we've just brought in from Maya. Now I'm not going to change that or modify that in any way at all. I'm simply going to match the Endorphin character to fit that, and we do that by using the translate tool first of all on the root, and then once the root is in place we can snap all the rest of the joints into place. So I've just gone down the leg there, and then in the center of the foot you can see that the Endorphin character has a 3-bone foot, whereas our reference character just has 2. So what we want to do here is just bring that one down, the middle one in line with the ball, and then snap the ball into place like that. So once we've got the leg there we can hit mirror left to right and we get the same on the other side. Now working our way up the spine, spine 1, and as you can see the simulation character again has extra joints compared to the reference character, so what I'm going to do here is just leave that in the middle and then snap the next one into place, and then Endorphin is going to automatically interpolate the animation from this joint to this joint, stretching over those two joints there, and then continue up the neck, head and head end, and then we go back down to the shoulders, collar, shoulder, elbow, and again you can see that the simulation character has an extra roll joint on the forearm. I'm going to leave that there again in the middle and then just snap the wrist into place, and again I can mirror, and now I've got the character set up and the two skeletons matching one another exactly. So once we have the skeletons matched up we need to associate the mass objects from one character to the other, and we do that using the character rig setup dialog. So I go character and then character rig setup, and in here it allows us to modify the rig settings for the two characters that we have in the scene. We have the simulation character and the reference character. As you can see, the simulation character, all the connections are already made to the rig, so all we need to do now is go into our reference character and fill it in just the same. So start with the root is the hips, lower spine, chest, and if you remember there was no mid spine, so we go upper spine, chest 2, head is head, shoulder is going to be collar, upper arm, shoulder, hand is wrist, and then there was no fingers on the reference character, so we leave that blank, copy it over on the other side, and then down to the legs. So upper leg is going to be hip, the foot is ankle, and toe is toe. And again on the other side. And there we go, we now have the reference character matched up to the rig nodes, the same as the simulation character, so now they both know what objects are connected to one another. So now I can OK that, go back into shaded mode, and then go character, save character as. So I'm going to call this Maya character, and click OK. So once we've got the character set up like this, we can, if we wanted to, just use him straight like this and import animations onto him, but his mass and collision objects are not going to be in the right shape and position to represent the actual shape and size of the character that we have in Maya. So what we do now is load in the mesh to move those objects around and have the character being the right sort of shape and mass. Now I can do that by selecting the reference character and then importing the mesh onto that. Now we attach it to the reference character so that once we then start editing the simulation character, the mesh will be frozen and we won't be able to touch it, and I'll show you that now. So now it's attached to the reference character. When I go back to the simulation character, it's not selectable, but I can work on the simulation character underneath. So to clean up this view here, I'm going to hide all the mass objects of the reference character and start working on the simulation character. I do that by using the node view. I hit on hotkey N there to bring up the node view. So what I want to do, hide the reference character and then unhide the mesh, and now we're in a state where we can work on the simulation character. So I'm just going to do a couple of things here. Obviously you can go into as much detail as you want, adding more collision objects and really starting to fill him out to exactly the shape and size that you want. So first thing I can see is that the head is in the wrong place. So I could just move the head graphic, but as you can see, that's just moving the graphic and it's not actually moving the collisions and mass objects underneath. So again, I'm going to bring up the node view, and then I'm going to walk up the tree to the head mass, and now when I move that, all of its children are going to move, including the mesh as well. And then I go down to the feet, and I can see that these heels are angled up a little bit. I want to change that, so I'm going to go to the left view and focus on the foot, zoom in here, and I'm just going to modify these a little bit. So I'm going to rotate it around so that it's horizontal, move it down so that the collision object on the end is touching the ground, and then I'm going to do that with the rest of these objects as well. We have the foot flat on the ground, and now I can mirror, and then we got both feet over there. Back to the perspective view, and now I've got my character pretty much set up how I want him now. So now I go character, save character. So once I have the character set up, I can then go into scene mode just by going to new scene, and as you can see the timeline comes back again now, and we're now in standard scene mode. Delete the default character, go to add character, choose Maya from the list, and there's our character. So what we want to do now is to load an animation onto him that we have in Maya. So I'm going to switch back to Maya and bring out an animation from there. So I'm going to go into the tutorial directory again and load up run jump. And close the hypergraph. So we have an animation here of the character doing just a run and then jump. So I want to export that out and apply that to our Endorphin character. So I just use FBX again, export all, and I'm going to call that run jump, and I'm going to choose FBX, export. We're going to keep all the same settings again and export that, and then switch back to Endorphin. So then to import that animation, I go to select the Maya character, click on import, and then select the run jump animation that we've just saved. And then in here I'm going to select the hips again as the root, and then in the auto motion transfer section I'm going to turn on the source reference character and browse, choose our Maya character, OK, leave everything else as default, and then click OK. And then the motion is going to be dynamically transferred from the reference character skeleton, the Maya's skeleton, onto the Endorphin skeleton, and then we're ready to simulate after that. So now we have our character animating. Then once we have our animation loaded in, we can then extend it and modify it using the behaviors and other tools available for us within Endorphin. So then once we're happy with our animation, we can then export it out using the file export, and then I'm going to call this run jump 01. Then in the export dialog we want to turn on auto motion transfer section and choose Maya character from the list, leave everything else as default and click OK. Now that's going to transfer the motion back onto our external Maya skeleton, and then in our Maya scene we're then ready to just load it straight back onto this skeleton. So we go File, Import, select Run Jump 01, and then in the import dialog choose Exclusive Merge, and what this will do is just load the animation onto whatever bones are available with the same names into the Maya scene. Then leave everything else as default and click Import. And now we have our Endorphin animation back into Maya again.